It's your boy. I'm back with some fucking heat again. Mostly kidding. I just have had a video that I've wanted to make for a while because I want to start making some videos like this. And I had written a really, really long script. I have forgotten the script. Fuck the script. The script was dumb anyway. Um, I'm gonna just shoot it straight off the head. I might be like cutting out in and out though. In the video because, like I said, I'm doing it off the head, and it's been like a month since I watched the show. So, from the title, as I'm sure you can see, this is about Monster. This is my review, my in-depth review of Monster, because I want to start doing this thing where, I do the small reviews of series, but I really want to get into detail with a lot of the series. So I'll start off like 10 minutes in, then I'll probably just start going into spoilers. But the first 10 minutes will be spoilerless, essentially. So I just need to say, Monster is like okay, not the best, but it's one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life. It is that good. It is genuinely great, like all the time. There is some problems, but they're very, very small. And they're not really even problems. They're just kind of ways that, or things that just were going to happen. Like the show is going to be slower paced because it's not like most other anime, which is kind of silly a lot of the time and pretty fast paced. This show is a slow burn, but once it starts going, it's going fast. It's like, oh my god. And once it ends, you're like, wow, that was insane. Like so much just happened in the last little bit. My way to describe it is if Breaking Bad and Death Note had a child, and it was more on the Breaking Bad side of things, but still an anime, where it is still, it's a lot, like it's a serious show, bro. Like if they adapted this, there's like two shows that I think could genuinely be a really good live adaptation, and this is one of them. I think Monster could have an amazing live adaptation because that could be told with real people, like absolutely could be told with real people. There's no like silly anime shit really ever. It's just a genuinely a good story like that. And then the other one, if you were wondering, is about Black Lagoon, which is a little more silly, but you could make that silliness work in a show, like a TV show, because it's not really like anime silly, like I'm eating a lot of food or whatever. It's like some silly like situation that they're in or whatever. That's about it. But that's not me talking about that show. I'll save that for a different time. But Monster is so good, bro. So just to get some stuff right off rip. Protagonist, one of my favorite of all time. Very, very simple. You'll notice something about me. I don't mind when shows are simple. A lot of people seem to really hate when a show is very simple. But that's fine. I don't mind if a character is simple. That can be fine. Simplicity isn't bad, and complexity isn't good, necessarily. They can be, but they're not guaranteed. And Tenma's an amazing example. Same with Johan. Well, Johan's showing that it can be complex and good. But Tenma, well, yes, he is complex. He's pretty simple. Like as a character, he's pretty simple. He's just trying to right his wrong, essentially. And it's so good. He's such a good main character. Very easy to root for and enjoy. And he meets so many good side characters are great. Mr. Grimmer is like one of my favorite one of my favorite characters of all time in anything. That's how good that man was. I love Mr. Grimmer. He was amazing. He's a great foil to Johan. Johan is just like the actual biggest menace I have ever seen. Well, okay, not really. He's not the biggest because I've seen a lot of anime, but well, he is pretty close. Like, because most other anime characters, it's like they have some power that lets them manipulate or something like that. Johan isn't like that. Bro is just mad charismatic and also just kind of nightmarishly smart. Like a real person and like a real psychopath. And he is great. He is great as a villain. Who else? There's Lunge, or Runge. I don't remember if it's Runge or Lunge, but whatever his name is amazing. He's a detective. He's super, super good. I hated him for a long time. Ended up liking him. The story, I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna get into detail, but it is very, very good. As much of like him jumping around, kind of, it's kind of like a traveling the world and meeting people type of thing for a lot of it, but it's still so good. And these like little small like arcs, you end up caring quite a bit about them. Just amazing stuff. The soundtrack is good. Not like the best ever, but it is good. The animation, I'll just go over the one thing that I would say may turn two things that may turn some people off. First thing being, the animation is pretty old. It came out in like 2003, which some people will not like that. I don't think you should let that sway your opinion. I don't think the animation is everything, but I also think the people who act like it's not important are absolutely insane. It is important that the animation may not look amazing, but I will say that Monster actually does look pretty good. It's just kind of like, it's like a, what is it called when it's a square aspect ratio? I don't know, but it's like that constantly. Like, imagine I cut off this on my screen. That would be what you would be seeing on that show constantly. You forget about it eventually. It doesn't really matter. And it doesn't look like great. It's not like 4K, 60 FPS, fucking insane like animation like Demon Slayer or anything, but it's serviceable enough. And like I said, it's like a realistic-ish plot, so it's not exactly, you don't need that. Then the other thing that I will say may make some people not like it is, like I said, like slow. Like, this is a slow burn. Like, it kind of starts off fast and then it slows down. It slows way down. Not that that's a bad thing. I'm watching One Piece right now, and that's slow to a bad thing. That's like actually bad how slow that show is a lot of the time. But Monster, I never felt that way. It's still pretty fast for all things considered. And then just the outro is so good, dude. The outro is so good. It's really eerie. And it does mean something in the story, like overall. But it is seriously one of the eeriest outros I've ever heard. And because I was watching it on Netflix, my controller does this thing sometimes where it won't let me skip the outro. So sometimes I was just stuck listening to it. And it's like 12 o'clock at night, keep in mind. And I'm like, Jesus, this is kind of unnerving, bro. Like, it's got me looking around my room and like, Jesus, yeah, kind of scary. Man, what else? The location they're in is pretty much just Earth. So, well, it is just Earth. So it's cool to see that, I guess. It's not like super interesting or anything, but it's cool. I don't really care. What else is there? So much. Oh my god, so much. It's good. I can't wait. It's I really do think it's like one of the animes that it's so good that it kind of transcends anime. Like, it's something that I think a lot of people should watch. It's not like on the same level as Attack on Titan, I'd say, or Demon Slayer, where it's like, okay, anyone will enjoy this, because I don't think anyone will enjoy this. There's a lot of people who wouldn't like the serious parts of the story, and a lot of the so it takes place in Germany, and there's some like Nazis and shit. It's kind of crazy in that regard, but like, even with that, I think it's important. And it's the same thing with Black Lagoon, where they go and fight Nazis, and some people would probably be like, well, you don't need to do that. But also, it's like, they're such a villain, you should 100% be able to just beat up Nazis. Like, that should just be allowed. I don't know why people get upset about that. I can't really go into detail on this part, but there is one specific moment of the story that I do think some people are not going to be a huge fan of. And there is also an element of, it's not plot armor, because it's not like it actually saves him or anything, or saves anybody or anything. But like, the main character just happens to see a lot of things that he needs to see for the story to progress, which I don't have a problem with, but I'm sure some people would be like, well, that's kind of dumb. How'd he meet that guy there and find that thing? That's really lucky, which it is. But also, you don't have a story without that, so like, I don't know. That's just fine I'm fine with that, but some people may not like that. That's like the two biggest complaints I've seen, was the like plot armor, which is not there really, and then the like I said, like the graphics and the mostly just how old it like looks, the animation. It is good. It is super good though. So quick review done. I'll put it in the. Oh well, here we'll put in my review, my number that I'd give it. I would give it, and this is like if you haven't watched these videos before, I give the first number is like a guesstimate essentially of like it's in usually in the 5 or the 0, so it's like 60 or like 100 or 95 or 34 or not 34, 35, something like that. Then later in the video I do an actual ranking of like this is like a 96 or an 87 or something like that, where it's a little more specific. So for now though, I would say I would give this probably a 95, 96 maybe even. Like no, not 96, like a 95. It's in between 95 and 100. So I'm just gonna give it a 95 because I don't want to give it a 100 because there's problems with it, but they are pretty small. Like there's not much to be angry about. Oh, I guess one other thing that some people may not be a huge fan of is the pace. Oh no, I said that already. Where it's super slow burn, and some people wouldn't like that. My bad. I'm recording after being like staying up really late last night. Oh yeah, spoilers. Beep, 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 beep. You were watching the show. You want to watch it at some point? Out of here. Get out. Go watch it. Everyone should watch it. So if you haven't watched it already, leave now. Or don't. I don't really care. But I really do think everyone should watch it at some point. So don't watch this part if you don't want spoilers. Last warning. Um, so, heyo, future Ryan here, as you can tell from my insane hair. I just wanted to show you the scene because I think it is just perfectly encapsulates like everything that I like about this show and how serious it is and how dark it is while still being like really eerie and good. So here comes that scene. Like I said, spoilers, be warned. This is like for the end of the show. Like this is big spoilers. So that's it.
Dr. Tenma, あなたにとって命は平等だった。だから僕は生き返った。でも、もう気づいたでしょう。誰にも平等なのは死だけだ。あなたには見える。終わりの風景だ。
The Birth of the Monster arc is Tenma is a doctor, a neurosurgeon to be specific, at a hospital, and this hospital is kind of fucked because they're kind of it is fucked where someone needs treatment, but then like let's say a more important person comes in, then they'll treat that more important person. So operates, but later, so he operates on a guy, saves his life, and then he operates and finds a Turkish construction worker died at the same time due to the lack of attention. And Tenma is blamed for the decision because he was asked to operate on this like more wealthy man essentially, and they probably didn't even need him there. Is like one of the things that he says. He's like, they probably didn't even need me there, but they just sent me there just to make sure essentially, and I could have saved that other guy's life. Then he's asked to operate on Johan, an adopted son of a wealthy couple who were shot in their home. Tenma goes against the orders of the hospital's director and chooses to operate on Johan, which leads to his demotion, and he's ostracized, is that how you say it? From his colleagues. Like everyone kind of is like, oh, that's that guy that screwed us over and made us look bad. And then a series of murders occur at the hospital, killing like a lot of the higher ups there. And Tenma becomes a suspect, and he ultimately uncovers a sinister plot involving Johan and his sister Anna, who are revealed to be the serial killers responsible for the murders. So, as you can tell, like I said, starts out kind of insane. So the first like 5 episodes are less crazy, but then once that shit starts going down, it's kind of crazy. That first part, really, really good. I will say it's a little slow to get you like into the show, I guess. Like it's not exactly but there's some other animes with some great starts. It's not exactly a Land of the Waves type arc to get you straight in, or it's not exactly a Bleach first episode or anything like that. But it is a really good first episode, or like, it's not like an Attack on Titan first episode or a Demon Slayer first episode. It's just a pretty average first episode, which is important. I will say that it's important to have your show start off with a bang usually. And to be honest, this didn't hook me at first. I actually stopped watching it like episode 4 the first time I watched it, and then I watched it again, and just finished the whole thing this time. And other than that, like first 4 episodes, it's so good. This first arc, it's very important and is just really good. Now to get into a little more interesting arc, essentially. Oh, and also, actually, just really quick, Tenma is great in this arc. Same with Johan. You feel very invested for both of them. And then Traces of the Monster arc. This arc is more episodic one where Tenma tries to find clues about the origin of Johan. Many characters in the main cast got their own episodes, like Nina, Ava, Lunge, and Dieter. Oh, Dieter. Wait, how you say Dieter? I don't remember, but Dieter is like a little kid homie that is hanging out with Tenma because he saved him from like his abusive dad. Lunge is the inspector that's like trying to solve the case of the murder at the hospital, and he really thinks it's Tenma who killed them. Nina is Johan's sister, and then Ava is Tenma's ex, essentially, who's gone completely insane. And then Tenma connects all the clues he can find, and he gets closer to Johan and his origin. So this is what I was saying when it kind of starts out, it's kind of slow. So these first, from episodes 1 to 8, well, it's more like, okay, episodes 1 to 8 are kind of hard to get you hooked, or 1 to 4 are hard to get you hooked. Then 4 to 8 are like, holy shit, what the fuck is happening? Then you watch all of those, and then you get to 9 to 24, and sometimes you'll be really invested. Like, I love Dieter's story, but I was not a fan of Lunge, Ava, or Nina, really. I grew into them eventually, to be fair, and these are important, but you will get kind of, I don't know what to call it, like, you'll get kind of, not bored, but it's kind of like, I'm not here for this, really, even though it is important. It's just, you don't realize it at that moment, but it's like, I don't really care about this Lunge guy or whatever. So episodes 9 to 24, I would say, are the worst part of the show. Well, not always, because it's like I said, there's like occasional episodes where you'll be like, holy shit, this story's really, really good. Like, this is some interesting shit. But after that, it's kind of, it's up to you. Like, maybe, to be fair, maybe all of you guys who watch this, or whoever's watching, would love Nina or Ava or Lunge, and you hate Dieter like I didn't. Because I love Dieter, and like, or maybe you like all of them and you'll really like this part of the show. I just don't like it as much as the rest. Then we got Monster in Munich. Oh yeah, so I would rate that like that's like the worst part of the show, and I'd rate that like a 6 or 7. The first arc, I would give that like a, I don't know, I'd give that like a 7 probably. Yeah, 7 sounds fair. We got Monster in Munich, which this arc takes place in Munich, where Tenma travels in his quest to kill Johan. Oh yeah, that's Tenma's whole thing. This article didn't really go over it, but so Tenma saves Johan, finds out Johan is like murdering people, and he's like, oh shit, I rezzed that guy. He's like, I saved that guy's life, and now he's killing other people. Does that make me responsible for his murders? And he feels responsible. So he's going to kill Johan to right his wrong, essentially. In Munich, Carl Newman and Lotte Frank investigate the murder surrounding Hans Georg Schuwald, an elderly and wealthy old man who has multiple people claiming to be his illegitimate son. Oh wow, we're already right there. What the fuck? And that shit was there was so much there. Who enrolled in his university and becomes oh yeah, and then Johan is essentially Schuwald's reader on Fridays. He hides a private investigator to look into the apparent suicide of one of the other people claiming to be his son. Edmund Farron. Johan offers to help Carl reconcile with his real... So Carl is his real father, or is his real son. So Johan's like manipulating him and making him reconcile with his father, essentially, whom he believes is Schuwald. When Carl and Lotte take Schuwald to visit a lake, Johann arrives and convinces Schuwald that he is standing on the edge of a beautiful lake. So that, I don't know why they said it like that. That was kind of dog shit. But that scene was really good because it shows you just how smart Johann is and just how like good he is at manipulating people. They show up to I think it's like a parking lot or something, and Schuwald, when he was originally there, was like a very beautiful forest and a lake and had birds flying all over and everything, and like apples and shit. And it had gotten replaced by a parking lot, and the other two are about to tell him, and then Johann walks up and he's like, "No, do you hear the birds?" And you can hear birds, and he's like, and there's this apple that he had in his like back pocket, and he hands him the apple. Also, they really just skipped over. So I'm gonna talk about the last arc after this one, or maybe, but it's really good. Johann's really good. This arc is pretty good. It's like an 8. But they kind of, I don't want to say skipped over. Also, you'll still hear me, but I have to cut her up. But you still, this still is a really good arc. But in the last one, I think it's the last one, right? Hey, don't eat that. But that arc is super, super good. It is it's still not as the best arc in the show. And there's still moments that are kind of like, man, I don't really care about this. Specifically towards the beginning, it's a whole lot of like, do I need? Which you do. Hey, yeah, sorry. But that is one thing in the show. You'll have certain episodes where you just kind of don't. It feels like you don't need it until later. Then you're like, oh, okay, I see why. And all of it is like humanizing certain characters and showing how smart other ones are or whatever. And then, oh, never mind. Wait, I thought they skipped over something. They didn't. I was right. Okay. So that arc is really good. Those characters are nice. It has a really cool scene where they're at this like library where one of the old guy Schuwald had convinced his like, or had been convinced by Johann to give up his entire like collection of library books or books. So he's giving up all these books. And in that scene, Johann is up on stage and he's gonna burn down the entire library just to like cause some chaos, essentially. Tenma's also there. He's got a fucking sniper rifle on top of some bookshelves. He's about to kill Johann, and Johann hits him. Why am I blurry? What the fuck? What the fuck? My camera's fucked. Hold on. But there's a really good scene where Johann is about to get shot by Tenma, and Johann knows, so he just does this. So Johann's like looking away. He's like over here, and then he turns to look at Tenma, and he just points directly at his head. Which, when he does this, that's where he got shot in the head, and it's him saying like, "Make sure you hit right here, or else I'm not going anywhere." Essentially, and that shit is so cool. And he hits that right. Tenma is about to shoot him, then he ends up not shooting him, and then he sees Roberto, who is another like, he's like Johann's henchman essentially. And he shoots Robert, I don't fucking know. Robert. I've said it too much now. Okay, but he shoots him, and he falls off, and he's presumed dead, and the building burns down. Tenma's saving people from the burning down building. And he's a criminal at this point, by the way, because everyone thinks that he he killed those people at the hospital when it was really Johann. So he's trying to prove his innocence along the way. And that arc ends like that, and it was really crazy. Then they go to Prague, Prague, I don't remember how to say it, but Johann's mother's currently living, and Tenma decides to go there. Wolfgang Grimmer, who, like I said, is like one of my favorite characters of all time, a journalist, helps Tenma escape arrest and helps him across the border into Prague. Grimmer confronts Petrov, the former director of 511 Kinderheim, about his involvement in the allegations of child abuse and psychological reprogramming. So that's like one of the main things of the story. Johann grew up in this orphanage, essentially, where they would they were trying to make a new leader, essentially, like the new upper class, essentially, by kind of just abusing children and psychologically reprogramming them. And it's super fucked. Like, it's a really fucked up thing. And that's where Grimmer comes from, Johann comes from, Roberto comes from, a whole bunch of them. All of them come, like, there's like 3 or 4 characters that all come from there. It's a really fucked up place. You learn more about it later. Petrov provides Grimmer with a key to a safety deposit box containing evidence about Johann's early years before he dies. Grimmer is later abducted and tortured for days for the safety deposit key by members of the Czechoslovakian STB in the Zeman, but he passes out. The woman resembling Anna interrupts the interrogation by shooting one of the STB members dead. Grimmer wakes up and finds the 3-man dead and concludes that his alter ego, the Magnificent Steiner, is responsible. So there's this thing where, as a kid, he watched a show with a character named the Magnificent Steiner, and when he goes like unconscious, essentially, he goes insane style. He's essentially Demon Slayer Zenitsu from Demon Slayer, where if he goes unconscious, he just beats the shit out of people, and it saves him, essentially. And that does happen with this guy. When he's like about to pass out, he goes Insano style and just beats the shit out of everybody. And that arc was really intense, for sure. And I think, during that arc, you meet I don't remember his name, but you meet a police officer, and he's like a recovering alcoholic, and you have this whole thing where he's about to go revisit his daughter, and then right as he's about to visit his daughter, he uncovers something about Johann, and you just know at that point, because you've been watching the show, you're like, this man is gonna die. Like, there's no way he's gonna get killed. I was dreading it, and then when it actually happens, it's seriously so fucked, because he gets like, I don't know if he gets cornered or led up onto a roof by Johann, and then you just see a scene. I'm sure it's a picture it's a lot of people have seen, but it's just Johann walks up to the edge of the roof, and he's like, do you want a drink? And he's got the bottle in front of him, and he's like offering it to him, and then it just cuts to like later in the day, and it's like the guy, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but I genuinely, that police officer's name, it's that guy was found dead, drunk, on falling from a roof, so people just thought that he fell from a roof drunk, which is so fucked. Like, that is such a terrible way to go, and of course Johann is behind it. A really good part, though. Then we've got, now that Tenma is arrested at this point, and news of Dr. Tenma's arrest. Oh yeah, so he gets arrested for a little bit. And it spreads throughout his former friends and patients. This arc explores the past of Johann and Anna and gives us much needed answers. Nina and her twin brother Johann are products of an extensive eugenics experiment which he designed to breed the perfect children without their mother's knowledge. This man was like Eisen out here. He was plotting for certain people to fuck and have kids. And then he would take those kids, abduct them, put them in a fucking like training center, essentially, to make the best leader, the upper class, essentially, the new leaders of the world. And he kind of did it. He made Johann, which, you know, he's pretty cool. But actually, to be fair, Johann like kills everybody there, I'm pretty sure. Also, Johann murders everybody there. Or he makes everyone just kill each other, and he's just sitting there, like, just hanging out. But then I'm pretty sure there was like I'm pretty sure that happens. And then the last arc, which is my favorite arc, the True Monsters in Ruinheim arc. While staying in the small town of Ruinheim, Wolfgang Grimmer and Inspector Lunge both investigate the possibility of an upcoming massacre. Lunge meets a boy named Wim. I'm not going to say that. We're just going to call him Wim, who is being bullied and abused by his father and other boys in town. Grimmer disguises himself as a new mayor and offers to help find a lost dog on the way to gather information. Lunge also investigates the town and discovers a house filled with sketches of the Liebert twins. Meanwhile, a local couple win the lottery and start buying guns out of fear that someone will try and take their winnings. As Conrad the owner of the local cafe, he is approached by a stranger with a gun. And from then on out, that shit goes Insano style. This is one of my favorite arc in the show, because Johan just can make utter chaos. Like, there's like, he brings in like a group of, I don't know, it's like 5 or 6, 7, 8 people with all these guns. And he turns that group of people, he turns the entire town into just absolute massacre mayhem, where people are just killing each other. Then they just run through the town and just murder like everybody. Then there's a really, really good scene with Mr. Grimmer where he's trying to save as many people as he can. He's walking with this girl, and this girl gets shot right next to him, like right through her neck, and he's trying to like keep her alive. She's already dead. Grimmer realizes, and he's like screaming at him like, why? And I'm terrified at this point because I love Grimmer, and I'm like, he's about to get shot. And then he doesn't, or then he does get shot because he starts walking towards the building, breaks into the building, kills like the however many people were in there, all of them. He's getting shot all the while. Fucking massacres them. Tenma gets back and he's like, what the fuck has happened? And he goes in there and Grimmer's like, hey Tenma, there's like 6 more people in the town. The Magnificent Steiner saved me again. Or he was like, the Magnificent Steiner didn't do it this time. This was all me. He didn't ever show up. And then he says the ending, he was like, and about the ending of that show, that show with Steiner in it that he watched as a kid, he was like, he probably regains his humanity. Because Grimmer, so just to go in depth on Grimmer really quick, like I said, he comes from Kinderheim, which was super fucked up. Same thing as Johan, but he became the opposite of Johan, where couldn't feel anything, but he still tried to be the nicest person he could be. He had a son and a wife, but his son dies, and he didn't cry. He didn't feel any emotion about it. And it's like a really sad moment. There's an arc, there's a scene in one of the earlier arcs where there's this kid and Johan convinces him to kill himself, and this kid's about to kill himself, and that's the first time you see Grimmer cry, and it was a sad cry. And bro's like asking like, hey, am I doing this right? And you feel so bad for him. And then finally in this arc you see, because he was like crying, he was like forcing himself to cry there, but then in this arc at the end you hear him say, he starts crying, and you're like, okay, so he's about to die. And he says, well, I finally, like, I know what happened at the end, like I said, where he's like, Steiner probably became human again. And then he also said, I'm crying for my kid, essentially. And it's a really sad moment, because you're like, dude, you know Ulquiorra from Bleach? If you know who that is, it's like that, where you just feel bad. It's like, this man finally feels human emotion, and then he just gets annihilated. Like, that's tragic. And that shit was popping off. All the while that's happening, Roberto and Lunge are having the brawl of the lifetime, bro. They're fighting their lives off. It's a crazy fight. Roberto eventually gets the best of Lunge. Lunge manages to get the upper hand finally. I think he gets beat again, but like barely. I think he shoots. Oh yeah, he shoots Roberto. And Roberto just leaves to go talk to Johan like one last time, essentially, and ask him. Lunge is like bleeding out, but he's fine. And then Johan and what's his name? Johan and Roberto talk, and Johan just hits him with the, "You're not gonna see what comes after. You don't know what comes after," which is like a whole big thing in this series. Where, God, I'm trying to. Oh yeah, and Johan. So this whole time he's trying to commit the perfect suicide. So what he wants to do is he wants to take the monster with him, essentially, which is him. He is the monster, and he wants to make everyone who ever knew about him forget, essentially, that he was ever there in the first place, which is fucking wild. that's a cool ass motivation. Sorry. It was crazy. I'm trying to find exactly what he said. Where he's like, you can see it, what comes after. And he's talking to, yeah, okay, he's like, you can't see what comes after. And Johan said this, he's got so many cool quotes. Like he says, the only thing he says, and I was so relieved, but you've noticed by now, and he's talking to Tenma, and then Johan says, the only thing all humans are equal in is death. And that shit goes so hard. So there's like 2 different ways you can, so Johan's a very deep character. I'm not going to make a full video about him because I know people have made some absolute bangers, and I'm not smart enough to be all on it, to be completely honest. But what I will say is, even for a dumb idiot, he is such a cool character. Like, he is actually just cool. In an edgy way, of course. Like, you can be like the Johan was right, you know, like those idiots. You can like him like that, but he is just actually cool. Like, he is just an actually cool character, and he's very smart, cool, calm, and collected, which is rare in an anime villain, where they actually are like, because if people are like, they're really calm and collected, and then like 10 episodes later they'll be screaming like, I can't believe this, and he's like going Super Saiyan or whatever. That shit is ridiculous. But Johan, what comes after, that's what it is. And that whole thing happens. Johan's going absolutely insane. Everyone's going crazy. It's a really, really good arc. And at the very end, they're all like, Lunge's like slowly coming there. Grimmer's dead, unfortunately. Anna is there. Tenma is there. Tenma's about to kill Johan. Anna tells Tenma to not kill Johan. He like doesn't kill him. And then what that father, that abusive father who's being abused by his kid. Oh yeah, and Johan's about to murder a child if Tenma doesn't kill him. He's just like, you gotta kill me, bro, or else I'm killing this kid. That's the only way it's happening. And then the kid or the dad of that kid walks up with a gun, and he was about to shoot himself or somebody else. He was about to shoot something that was bad, and then he shoots Johan. Johan dead. Tenma didn't shoot him in the end. They forgave him. They said that they forgave him for what he did. And Tenma no longer feels responsible for him. And then at the very end, which is this is a really good part, the fucking cops finally show up after the entire town has gone to shit. Everyone's like killed each other. It's gone insane. And oh yeah, and by the way, in the middle of all of this, the person who like actually planned all of Kinderheim and Johan and all that shit, well, not all of Johan, but planned to make Johan kind of what he was, and then when he found out Johan was such a monster, he was like, oh god, okay, I'm out. He gets killed in the middle of this, so that story's gone. No one knows about Kinderheim other than Tenma and the group, and even they can't really prove it or anything that happened anymore, so everyone there's been forgotten essentially, which is sad. But so police finally show up, they're like, oh my god, everyone's dead, except for these guys. And then they see Tenma, and they're about to arrest Tenma. And then on the police helicopter, Johan is still alive, and like barely. It's in the same state he was at the beginning of the show, where he'd been shot in the head as a kid. And oh yeah, and by the way, that shot that he got shot in the head with as a kid, he told his sister to do it. And that shit is crazy, because he's like, make sure you hit right here. Because Johan had killed his parents, and she shoots him. He survives. Tenma resurrects him. All this happens. Then at the very end, he gets shot in the head again. Same spot. Tenma resurrects him again. And this scene is really cool, because at the very end, they're sitting in a hospital, or Johan's sitting in a hospital bed. He's in a coma, and Tenma has been visiting people, and he visits Johan really quick. He'd visited their mom and told him that they were well, essentially, when, you know, they kind of weren't. But then Johan and Tenma talk one last time, and it's a scene that's just so eerie, because Johan shows up, and then in the hospital bed, then Tenma is it's like they're talking, and it looks like that, but then Tenma wakes up from his slumber, pretty much, and he sees what's it called? And Johan, or yeah, no, they're talking. Then Johan, it looks like Johan wakes up and is just staring at Tenma.
Dr. Tenma, あなただけに聞いてほしいことがある。あの時、あの怪物が僕の前に現れた。
And then Tenma wakes up, and Johan seemingly is still wakes up. Johan is seemingly still asleep, and then just Tenma just leaves, and that's the end of Tenma. But then at the very end, there's a little end credit scene. There's a scene of the bed is empty now, and the window is open. So there's like a lot of different things that could be. Because that could be anything from Johan killed himself finally, and he committed to perfect suicide. Could be he chose to live on. Could even be that he's back murdering people. And it's also entirely possible that like dream that Tenma was having didn't even ever happen, and it was just Johan was awake the whole time and was pretending to sleep and waited for Tenma to visit him. So you can't really say what happened exactly. And and then there's a pretty popular theory as well that he escaped from the hospital, had lost all of his memories of the past, and lived a normal life. Personally, I'm of the belief that he probably just killed himself, honestly. I think he probably got out and then died. Oh, and then there's another kind of crackpot theory where he died originally, and Tenma was just seeing like a vision of him still there, essentially, and him still talking. But some people say that he might have just actually just died, and Tenma was talking to him one last time, essentially, in like a dreamlike kind of state. And that's why it was like that. But it's hard to know. I don't know for sure. But that's how the ending looks. I did look it up just now though, but it does look like apparently he made a light novel, which does confirm that that Johan is not dead. He is still out there as a monster. Future Ryan again. I also have kind of finally realized what I was trying to say forever ago in my original script, kind of what I wanted to talk about. Another just really good part of this entire series is the like deep themes and stuff, and I finally have kind of realized what Johan was thinking the whole time and what this is really saying. And so the monster isn't like Johan is not the monster. The monster is not a person. The monster is that somebody is more valuable than somebody else's, and that's why the whole show from the very beginning is kind of pushing that like message. And that's what Johan meant when he said he saw a monster in front of him on the day that he got kidnapped in front of his mom, essentially. He saw himself as a monster, but was trying to, in death, he was trying to prove that everyone was a monster. So even after he died, then that's why he went into this scenario where he was making Tenma choose between Wim and himself, because he was thinking that Tenma would shoot him to save Wim, but then that makes Tenma a monster, which is why Tenma is able to see the landscape at the end, essentially. And that's why Tenma choosing to save him, even after knowing what he was capable of, was so, like, impactful. Tenma is not a monster. He outright proves that Johan is wrong, that not everyone is a monster, because Tenma truly does believe that all lives are equal. And that was just my, simple brain was able to figure it out. So I'm sure somebody has made some beautiful, discoveries, but that is the whole moral of the story, essentially. I think it's really good, and I really like that message. I especially like that it shows, because there's a lot of shows that like to do the everyone's a monster, literally everyone is bad, no good people exist, which that's just not true. Like, there's good people, there's bad people, and that's the nature of the world. That's why I like Attack on Titan so much, because not everyone is bad in that show. There's some genuinely just great people. Like Falco is a genuinely just a good person, or Armin is also just a good was just a good person. A lot of people are just genuinely good people, and Tenma genuinely is a good person, and he outright proves that Johan's theory of everyone is a monster is just simply not true. And not sound like smart or anything, because like I said, I couldn't figure out how to put it into words, but I just kind of did, so I thought I should throw that in. So that's my quick, very quick for sure, definitely not a 40-minute long video, talking about Monster. Just a few more like short things now that I've got all the spoilers out of the way. So, favorite arc, absolutely Ruinheim. I think Ruinheim is like an actual 10 out of 10. That arc was amazing. As I said, Grimmer's great, Johan's great, Tenma's great, Lunge is even great at the end. Literally, Nina is good. All of them are good. Everybody is a good character. Specifically Johan, Tenma, and Grimmer, though, I'd say are the three best. And Roberto. Roberto is also pretty good. He is so easy to hate, though. I'll tell you what. I had never in my life been rooting against a man like I was rooting against Roberto. Because you see Johan doing some fucked up shit, but Roberto was always the one doing, like, the dirty work. The bro was doing the worst of the worst, and he was just a piece of shit person as well. So it was absolutely easy to hate on him. Oh yeah, Roberto died from his wounds with Lunge also. So a lot of people died. Least favorite arc is absolutely probably the first one, but it's not bad. Like I said, like I think every arc in the show is above at least a 7. Maybe no, yeah, I'd say at least a 7. And I'd say the top of it is like a 10 out of 10, which is Ruinheim. Ruinheim's like actually great. Phenomenal show though. The music is good. The ending is about oh yeah, and that's like one of the other things. There's this whole like picture book thing, which I'm not even gonna attempt to remember it correctly all, so I'm just gonna say that's what the intro is though, is it's a picture book about a monster named Johan and its sister that it devoured, or a brother that it devoured or something. It's a cool show. It's just a cool show. The outro is good. Villain Johan's great. Emma's great. Amazing show. Not the best of all time, but pretty good. Like, that's pretty good. I wouldn't, it's not like I recommend it for everybody, because it is, as you can tell, a pretty fucking dark story. Like, it's not exactly the happy anime that anime usually is, where it's like the worst you'll see in an anime is like some people getting killed, or like, you know, like Jiraiya's death or something like that. That is sad, yeah, but it's not like actually fucked. But this shit is it's like actually super fucked up. Like, a lot of shit happened. Like I said, there's an episode where Johan convinces a kid to kill himself. Like, it's actually insane. And he convinces another kid that life's just a game, you might as well do whatever the fuck you want, which is some wild shit. Johan is crazy though. I love Johan. He's one of my favorite villains. And I really do love how much he represents like nature versus nurture. And it's a whole like thing in the show. Like, was he always was this always what Johan was? Like, was he born a devil essentially? Or did he become this from what society essentially pushed onto him? And that's a really interesting question, because I think Johan was probably always like this. I think it pushed him even further, but I think he was probably always a pretty fucked up like individual. It's a really, really good show. Tenma, a lot of people aren't a big fan of Tenma like choosing to resurrect him again, but I think it's a really good moment, because it's like Tenma this whole time, because I had been saying this since the very beginning of the show. I was like, dude, if I'm Tenma right now, as easy as it would be to feel responsible, you cannot feel responsible for that. A random child got brought into you, and you chose to operate on the child and save his life instead of the mayor, which I'd say is a completely fair decision. You did not know that this child was an absolute menace. Like, you didn't know that, so I don't think it was fair to blame himself. So then at the end, when he finally is like, okay, I don't blame myself for what he does, essentially. And he operated on him again. He said it's not a doctor's place, essentially, to choose who gets to live. He just saves people, essentially, which is a good thing. I think that is exactly what a doctor should be doing, is saving people. Not his. You're not like morally obligated to kill. Well, okay. There's like some people. Well, yeah. There's some people that I'd say you're not morally obligated to kill them, but you're not. You. It's up to you essentially if you want to work on that. Also, a few more things. So I just also had to say, I have never in my life been so anxious watching a show. Like, I'm not like actually scared, but Johan is like an absolute monster, and you're constantly like, what is about to happen next? Like, is he gonna do this? Or even at the end, even at the very end when he's like dead, I was still like unnerved being around Johan. He's just that good of a villain. He is such a good character. The super complex. I also just completely love that at the very end, at the end of the day, Johan is just a monster with no name, essentially, and that shit is so scary, but it's so good. Like I just have to say that because it is so good. Um, there's some, oh my god, there's so much. The ending is like a really just great ending. He's it's just you it's so much like the rest of the show. Like it leaves you thinking. Um and I know that's like a pretentious thing to say, is like this show will keep you thinking even after it's done. Like you'll always be wondering what really happened. But it genuinely does in this case, and it is genuinely great that it does that. And it's so good. And it's you can take this show an entirely different way than I did. Because personally I took it that Johan kind of was always a monster, well, not even always, just was born not a monster, was pushed slightly and went insano style and became a full monster, and then got pushed real far and is now like the worst monster. um and like I said, he's trying to do two things. He's trying to commit the perfect suicide so nobody remembers him, so he is truly a nameless monster who will never be remembered, and also trying to prove that everyone is a monster, not just him, essentially. And he's proven wrong at the very end, and it's just a very good way. It's a very, very good and interesting way to end the series. And is there anything else I want to talk about? Oh yeah, it's just a really deep show. And it's got some really good shit. Finally, to just rank it all of this combined. So far on a scale of animes that I have actually rated so far, it's been pretty much only Demon Slayer, and I've rated season 3, which I think I gave a 85. Season 1, which I gave a 65 or a 75. And a 50 is average for me. Like that's like a really just mid show. Like I know people use mid like it's an insult, but mid to me is literally it's just average. So it's way above that. And then the second highest I think is Mugen Train, which I just recently I think I just uploaded yesterday. Is a 95 or a 94, I think is what I put it as. Now Monster 98, I'm going to say. I think there's two problems with this show, like I said, and one of them I don't mind, which is the animation. Don't mind. The other problem is the slow pacing, but I think it's important that it is slow. It's just sometimes there's certain episodes where you're kind of like, well, I don't really need this. But Monsters, fucking amazing. Like I said, not a must watch. Like I'll say Demon Slayer is a must watch to pretty much anybody because it is just anyone will like it. Monster, not everyone's going to like it. But if you do like this type of show, it is a absolute must watch. It's a thriller anime. It's genuinely some of the best out there. One of my favorite shows of all time. It's up there with Breaking Bad for me. It's that good. That's about it for that, I think. It's like I said, 98. The highest you'll probably see for a while, honestly. Because I'm going to be talking. Well, okay. There's one thing that is going to be higher, but it's a very specific reason why it's higher. So I absolutely suggest Monster as a watch. It's seriously one of the best like shows I've ever seen, and I think anybody should watch it if they're interested in thrillers, dark shows in general, or just good TV. Then that's about it. Later.